think you hopefully you know better than me, and you should. Yes, Bronson normally moderates, is not here this morning, so I'm taking her place. Age instead of beauty. And with that, I guess I just start out. Maybe we could do introductions. We'll go around. And is this because it's a political discussion that everyone's on the sidelines? I don't know, but maybe we can start with Amy.
Amy Fields, I'm the general manager here at Eastside Food Co-op. Welcome. Thanks for coming this morning.
I'm Treshy. I'm the operations manager here at the co-op.
George Fisher. I'm on the board here at the co-op.
My name is Carrie Miller. I work for Restorative Justice Community Action. We do some restorative justice in the neighborhood. We're always looking for volunteers. People are interested in that.
Pete Dowdy, co-op member, residents up the way on Architect Avenue, and member of the Columbia Park Board.
Christina Grafis, Eastside Food Co, and on the Stano board. Where do you want to pick up? Yeah, maybe go back.
We can jump back. Steve Sylvester, Winter Park.
Don Anderson, Park.
Debbie Woodward, Norfolk Peak Building.
Jen Shadowins, founding co-op member, and I'm on the Yangwa Academy board.
Jenny Sutton, I'm on the committee for this Northeast Network, and I'm also on the board of the Holland Neighborhood Association.
Margot Ashmore, Northeastern newspaper, Sheridan resident, and also working on the Minneapolis and St. Paul home.
My name is Mike Benowitz. I live in Wyndham Park, and I'm also the Ward 1 member of the Capital Long Range Improvement Committee for the city.
Sue Peterson. I'm St. Anthony East resident and an interested citizen and member of the board.
Peter Baker, got a company on Wake Park, interested in what's going on in the community, and that's it.
I'm Sonia Peterson. I'm a resident, and I am rather apprehensive about what's going to be happening at the legislature. That's why I'm here.
And a tone setter.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this.
Lynn Hill, writer.
I'm Becky Deming, and I'm on the Becky
Lynn McIntyre, EFC Marketing Membership Coordinator, and on the board.
My name is Dr. Chris Hansen. I opened Northeast Community Chiropractic, which is now open, so come on in.
I'm Chris Pratt, and I'm on the board here at the Custom Co-op.
I'm Blaine Myers. I work for Hennepin County Corrections in the neighborhood office up here on 26th and Central. I supervise a caseload of parolees in the 2nd precinct.
My name is Manisha Nordine, and I'm on the co-op board.
Hi, I'm Missy Dykstra, and I'm from a nonprofit that helps people with barriers to employment or disabilities to find careers and meaningful employment. Thanks.
Thanks. Well, welcome. We asked Diane to come here when the first time we tried this, which was just a year ago, and she's back. You know, and we have a new legislative session, and thanks to Ms. Peterson over there. She would be anxious or not, and what's coming up. And I think Diane will be able to give us some insights.
Well, it's only in week 2, but I must say it's probably good cause to be anxious. But, you know, Minnesota perseveres. I mean, we've gone through tough times before, and I just have to keep having my faith that we will together figure out the way out of this. And but it's going to be a daunting session. So first of all, thanks to the Eastside Board and to the co-op for hosting this and starting it. It was a grand experiment a year ago, and I'm delighted it's continued to find another place for people to get together and connect and engage and find out what's happening in Northeast and talk about it. Many of you know I was active as a leadership volunteer in neighborhood and community and education issues for decades before I stepped up to elected office, and so I cherish the important role that all of you carve out of your lives to make a difference in our community, because it really is what democracy is all about. It's about starting wherever you see an issue or an opportunity to make things better and step it up and joining with others and making things happen. And that's exactly what happened with the legislature. Maybe not quite in as elegant and friendly and down home and comfortable a way some days, but hopefully we aspire to be that kind of ideal citizenship where we make our citizens that we represent proud, and that we do it in a way that isn't rancorous but is respectful as different ideas clash within the public's realm. Just a couple of little, I mean, I know a lot of you are so busy you don't have time to like remember everything you learned in 4th and 5th grade about the state of Minnesota and how it's organized. So just a brief legislative 101. In Minnesota, like at the state kind of emulated the federal government. We have two bodies. We have a House and a Senate. And unlike the Senate, we in the U.S. Congress, where every state gets 2, here it's actually 67 people based on equal population. So, and then every Senate district, we're Senate District 59, has 2 House members. So the House is twice as big as the Senate. And so I represent all the 13 neighborhoods in Northeast Minneapolis. Senator Larry Poggemiller is our senator, and he represents not only my side of the district, but the area that's southeast, the West Bank, even goes over to Franklin, that Representative Phyllis Hahn represents. So, and together we try to make sure that the concerns and interests of this area are heard and represented in the debate and the discussion, and to look out for local issues and help local constituents with issues that are around. We used to meet every other year, actually up until the 1970s, and we did everything on a 2-year basis. We budgeted on a 2-year basis, and we bonded on a 2-year basis, and we did kind of, and then we hit the 70s, and hopefully we're never going to head for that again, but it was double-digit inflation. You know, that's when mortgage rates were like 15 to 17%. Because the states were floundering, the federal government stepped up with federal revenue sharing, all kind of programs that they were trying to help the states out with. But you sometimes needed to pass a law to take the money and implement it. And so the citizenry was convinced to amend our constitutional laws to meet every year. And so now we do meet every year, starting in the winter and going until late May. And the first year of the biennium, though, we still budget on a 2-year basis. And so that's going to be the major work of this year, is trying to deal with the budget. And as you may, we always balance our budget. We're not like the federal government. We can't print money, and we can't do IOUs that go over that 2-year period. We can shift when we pay things. We have a few little tools, and they've almost all been used up, so I think they're gone. And so we're going to have to be faced with some really serious, honest budgeting over the next few months. And to make it even more challenging, voters this year chose to change the leadership makeup of Minnesota. And in some ways, it kind of reversed the picture of what we had before. You remember last year we had the Democrats in charge of the House and the Senate, and we had Governor Pawlenty as a Republican in the governor's office. This year, Minnesota tends to like to mix it up. The voters always do that. We usually have divided government in some way. And for the first time in 24 years, we now have a Democratic governor. We're very pleased to be serving under Mark Dayton as our new governor. But the House and the Senate now are under Republican majorities. And that changes the dynamics of the tension points. It changes who's in charge and who gets to set the agenda for committee meetings. And it changes the issues that we're going to be dealing with. And while the budget will be the backdrop of almost everything we do and the biggest tension points, it does mean a whole lot of other issues are going to be lifted up, some of which probably wouldn't have come up on the floor of the legislature in the same way if the Democrats had been in charge. And so it does change the agenda. And so some of those issues that are going to come up beyond the budget is how to create jobs and grow our economy, and that's a bipartisan priority. We know that a lot of Minnesota households are suffering. They're suffering not only because of job loss, but because their hours have been cut, because their wages have been cut, they've been forced to take unpaid furloughs, and their health insurance costs have been going up. And the only way out of a budget deficit is to try and figure out not only how to build that, but how to grow the economy going forward. And there'll be lots of lively debates about how to do that. And I'll give you a copy of the newsletter I sent out to area residents, but it has a survey of all the different ideas that people are throwing out for how we can help grow jobs. And it'll be interesting to see what people think are the ones we most ought to pursue. Unfortunately, our state economist, who just did a presentation at the retreat I was at yesterday, says there's almost nothing a state can do in the short term to really influence its economy. We're in the midst of a global economic shift. And so one state on that big globe has minimal impact on the bigger forces that are dealing with outsourcing and where businesses decide to grow and create jobs and what they do. So that's why I like to emphasize the local economy, where we know people kind of circulates within our community, and it's more likely to have multiplier effects. So that's going to be a big debate. And already, the Senate File 1, the first premier bill in the Senate, is about cutting corporate income taxes and corporate property taxes or business property taxes. And so already, the lines are being drawn on different ways to do that. And those will be active debates. Another issue that's going to be coming up, maybe even yet this week, it was voted out of committee on Tuesday, is lifting the moratorium on nuclear power. And so that would not have come up in the first week if the Democrats were in charge. I mean, it's a different set of issues, and for those of us who are used to being in the majority, we're learning to be graceful and respond to what others have set on the agenda, and it's just a changing thing. I'm just going to whip through another bunch of hot button issues, and then we're getting to the budget, because that's really going to be the focus of this year's work. Other issues: alternative teacher licensing, teacher tenure. Are they doing their jobs right? How do we evaluation? That is going to be a huge issue. Photo ID for voting is a perennial favorite, especially after an election year. Whether or not the state should buy more land for conservation is a tension point, with different parts of the state looking at this issue very differently. The degree of environmental protection and regulation that we have in this state is going to be lifted up in different ways than it has in the past. I think there are some legitimate issues that have been raised about streamlining the process and how long things take, but I think that there's also going to be issues about how rigorous that examination should be, and that'll be a lively debate. When Mary Green, who's our new freshman representative from South Minneapolis, she took Margaret Anderson Kelleher's seat at the legislature. She said, well, what is it going to be like to be in the minority now? And it's mostly going to be big debates in committee. What can I expect? And so I started thinking about 4 years ago when I was in the minority, and I said, you know what it is? I said, it's almost like PTSD. It's going to be the floor debates will seem to be disproportionately all about Minneapolis. So 2 weeks after the election, I called up the city hall and said, we need a briefing book on one-pagers, all the facts and figures on every controversial issue about Minneapolis, because there are no Republicans from Minneapolis in the legislature, and they tend, for whatever reason, because we're the biggest city, a variety of different things, we tend to be a target. And the last term that the Republicans were in charge, I think we voted over 20 times on the issue of whether or not local law enforcement should be primary enforcers of immigration law. And so, and if we got, and there were just a whole bunch of issues about our garbage hauling, all kinds of issues that came up about Minneapolis on the floor, not even about Duluth. And so I said, we just got to be ready. And so there'll be more attention to our fair city, and I think we're going to have some positive stories to tell, but we'll be challenged in a lot of ways as well. We're going to be preparing to implement federal health care reform, and I hope to play a big role in that. I have been a leader on health policy. We have not gotten the word out, I think, as effectively as we could, that many of the federal reforms are implementing what we've already implemented in Minnesota. And we have one of the lowest rates of uninsured in the nation. We have some of the highest quality and lowest cost health insurance, even though to us it doesn't look like low cost if you compare it across the national average. We have some of the highest health outcomes, and we're leading the nation on prevention and wellness promotion, and the kinds of things that long term will make a difference. But we have some work that we have to do in order to prepare our state to meet the 2014 deadlines for implementing a lot of that, and